Mary Louise Cook here. Welcome on into the last regular season edition of FCS All-In. As always, in store for you today are segments from the conferences around the FCS and contributions from national correspondents Sam Herder of Hero Sports and Craig Haley of Stats Perform. With just today left in the regular season, it's time to go all in.
Welcome to Valley Football's Extra Point. It's the final week of the regular season, and the playoff picture is still very murky for the Valley, with as many as 7 teams who could be playoff eligible by the weekend. North Dakota State clinched at minimum a share of its 10th Missouri Valley Football Conference title with a win over Youngstown State. The Bison can wrap up the league's automatic qualifier with a victory this weekend and potentially a top 2 seed. A win over South Dakota would also give NDSU sole possession of the league title and make it 10 conference titles in 11 years. Wild is the only way to describe the finish between South Dakota and South Dakota State's game. Never before has a game-ending Hail Mary been successful in league history until Saturday. Freshman Jeremiah Webb, the hero as time expired, corralling a batted 57-yard Carson Camp pass in the end zone for the upset win over South Dakota State. It marks the 16th time a league game has been decided on the final play of regulation. With a win this week over Dixie State, Missouri State will put itself in the FCS seeding conversation. The Bears finished a 5-0 regular season at home and hit 6 league wins for the first time since 1978. Quarterback Jason Shelley is the Bears' new season record holder for passing yards with more than 2,800. And Saturday's 300-yard passing game marked his 5th game with no interceptions. Shelley engineered the Bears' 4th game-winning fourth-quarter scoring drive of the season in a win over UNI. The 24-team FCS playoff field will be revealed Sunday at 12:30 Eastern Time on ESPNU.
Heading into the final week of the regular season, both Montana State and Sacramento State remain undefeated in league play and locked in a tie for first place in the league. The Bobcats also remain at number 3 in both national polls this week, while 4 other Big Sky schools join them in the top 25 of both national polls. To remain there, the Bobcats outlasted the Idaho Vandals 20-13 at home. Montana State's defense has continued their defensive streak of holding their opponent to 20 points or less for the 15th straight regular season game. The undefeated Hornets picked up a 29-point victory over Portland State. Sacramento State has won their last 7 games, which is the longest for the program since moving to the FCS in 1993. An Eastern Washington quarterback and Walter Payton Award contender Eric Berrier broke the record for most career passing yards in a top 10 road victory over UC Davis. He now sits at 12,676 yards. His performance earned him his 6th Player of the Week honor, breaking the record for most honors in a single season. I chatted with him about his success this season and why he thinks he's deserving of the Walter Payton Award. Let's take a look. You've broken the record for the most weekly honors in the Big Sky in a single season. What do you think has set you apart this season compared to other ones?
I'm just thinking just this off season. It had a little to do with the spring season, just how kind of the way that season ended. So this was just a huge motivation for me this season, and it was my senior season. So I just felt like I had to, display everything and leave everything out there.
Now, Eric, you also set the record for most career passing yards in the league and for your school. Now, Matt Nichols previously held the record for 12 years and was in attendance. What can you say about the legacy of quarterbacks there at Eastern Washington and now the legacy that you're going to get to leave there?
It's crazy because the quarterback tradition here is it goes back all the way to, I want to say the 2000s, late 1990s. So and when people think people only know about the most recent quarterbacks and stuff, but if you go back and look at the history of just all Eastern quarterbacks, they all been great. They all done won Walter Paytons. They done put up crazy stats. So I know it's an honor for me to just add to that legacy and just add to the tradition that the Eastern quarterbacks already had.
Eric, you mentioned the Walter Payton Award there and how there have been quarterbacks there at Eastern who have earned it. What makes you deserving of the Walter Payton Award?
I just think my play, like in the spring season, it was just I showed glimpses and stuff. But like this season, I took over everything. I showed what I can do. It's crazy to think like I've broken all these records just throughout the year because I didn't even know like half of this stuff was attainable and like I was this close to a lot of these things. So, I think my play shows that like I'm one of the best in the nation in the FCS and stuff. So, I mean, it's up to the voters at the end of the day, but I feel like I've done enough and shown what I can do.
You can find the full interview with Eric Barrier on Big Sky Social. And with the last week of the regular season set to kick off, here's a rundown of all the action highlighted by the highly anticipated Brawl of the Wild in Missoula. And that's all for the Big Sky. Be sure to follow at Big Sky FB for around the clock coverage.
This is the WAC report for FCS All-In. I'm Kendra Sheehan. The college landscape is rapidly changing nationally. Last week, Commissioner Jeff Hurd announced another new school would be joining the conference next season. The University of the Incarnate Word accepted their invitation to join the WAC last Friday. The Cardinals will become official members in July of 2022 and will be a part of the WAC football schedule. UIW is located in San Antonio, Texas. Earlier this year, Southern Utah accepted its invitation to join the WAC. The Thunderbirds will also become official WAC members in July of 2022. SUU joins in-state rivals UVU and Dixie State as WAC members. This will give the WAC 8 football-playing members in 2022. Let's get back to 2021. Time is flying by and we're already in the final week of the regular season. Sam Houston clinched the automatic qualifier into the NCAA playoffs from the WAC A-Sun Challenge. The Bearcats are 5-0 in the AQ7 and will look to finish out its second consecutive perfect regular season against Abilene Christian. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m. Central Time from Anthony Field at Wildcat Stadium, aired on ESPN+. Stephen F. Austin hopes they can clinch a share of the WAC title with a win over Lamar this weekend. The Lumberjacks are 3-1 in conference play, 1 game back from first place Sam Houston. SFA is also riding a 4-game win streak heading into the final week of the regular season. That is a 3 p.m. Central kick on ESPN+. Tarleton will host Central Arkansas this week. The Texans will look to finish the season with a winning record, right now sitting at 500 with a 5-5 mark overall. The game kicks off at 5 p.m. on ESPN+. Lastly, closing out the regular season weekend will be Dixie State, hosting Missouri State out of the MVFC. The Trailblazers earned their first win of the season last week against Fort Lewis, setting numerous school records in the process. That game is a 7 p.m. Mountain Time start in St. George. For FCS All-In, I'm Kendra Sheehan.
FCS All-In rolls on here with our national correspondence segment. I'm Bryson Lester, joined by Craig Haley from Stats Perform and Sam Herder from Hero Sports. Gentlemen, thank you for being here with me today on the final day of the FCS regular season. We will have a playoff bracket before we know it, but we've got a lot to talk about before we get to that point. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Craig, let's start with the top 25 poll here. Obviously, going into the last week of the regular season, what are some of the biggest questions that still stand out as we go into the last day of FCS football here?
Well, it's been competitive behind Sam Houston, Bryson. I mean, obviously with, James Madison, Montana State, North Dakota State right now. I mean, they're all trying to get in that mix for the number 2 seed. Obviously, James Madison's number 2 in the Stats Perform poll, but, you want home field advantage to the semifinals. I think that's what stands out is the top teams are all trying to be in that position for a top 2 seed, and obviously Sam Houston wins today, they're fine.
Sam, you've been doing bracketology all season. We'll finally get to see an official one tomorrow. Not sure if you're doing one tonight or not after all the results go final. But, as you were putting one together earlier this week, looking at it, what are the biggest things we're still looking to find out today as we go into the last weekend of regular season?
Yeah, I think the three biggest questions will be, because most conferences will kind of get a good sense of which teams are going to be in from most conferences. But with the SoCon, I think ETSU is a lock no matter what happens with their game against Mercer. But after that, what happens with Mercer, what happens with Chattanooga if they hit their 7th D1 win today, what happens with VMI if they hit their 7th D1 win today. I think the SoCon will likely get 3 teams in, but that means that 4th team is going to be deserving that eventually gets left out. And so it's just a matter of which 3 teams is it going to be from the SoCon. Also with the Valley, I think the Valley will somehow get 5 teams in. The question is, will a second team outside of North Dakota State get a playoff seed with South Dakota State losing last week? I think that knocks them out of the seed. So the Valley could get 5 teams in, but maybe only 1 seeded team. And then the third question is, how many teams does the CAA get in? I mean, 2 for sure with James Madison and Villanova, and then William and Mary, has a chance. Rhode Island has a chance as well. So is it 3 CAA teams? Is it 2? Is it 4? That's another big question.
A lot of questions to be answered over the next 24 hours, especially for that playoff committee. We'll talk about them in a second. But Craig, real quick, when it comes to the overall playoff picture and seedings and all those different things, do you think that the value of a conference championship gets overlooked a little bit here?
Great question, Bryson. I mean, in a way it does. I think we all look big picture half the time, with talking about, playing for the national championship. And I think when people, we all do it. When our team or when an athlete, wins a conference championship, what's the first thing they do? They all say, we're going to the big dance. They don't say we won our conference title. I do think it gets a little overlooked at times. I think winning your conference is so important. You're playing your rivals. There's so much regional interest throughout the conference. And, when you go into a season, your goal, first of all, is to win your conference. So you're focused on that. It leads to the next step. So I do think the big picture is only for a select few out there. I just think, yes, the value of winning your conference championship when you're talking about the teams you play year in and year out, that is so important.
Sam, no matter what that final bracket ends up looking like, fans always have their opinions, always have something to say. When you look at the playoff committee, how much pressure do you think those committee members feel? And, do you kind of view it as a thankless job that they have to go through here?
Yeah, it definitely is. And, each year there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 decisions that a lot of us can poke at. But I personally think for the most part, the committee does a decent job with the guidelines they have to stay within. And I say it every year with a lot of decisions and a lot of how the bracket looks is, don't be mad at the committee for this, be mad at the guidelines they were given to them, because it's not as easy as just putting the 24 best teams in the brackets. You have auto bids. If you can bust 2 teams in the first round, the committee basically has to do it unless those two conference teams played in the first round, and so or in the regular season. So I think there's some things that happen in the bracket, like if the Big Sky gets the number 2 seed and the number 7 seed, well, they're going to be in the same pod. And then because of regionalization, those 2 Big Sky seeded teams could see other Big Sky teams in the second round. And so that's where a lot of the complaints come from is, why are there so many Valley teams on this side? Or why are there so many Big Sky teams in this pod? Well, you can't be mad at the committee for that. You just have to be mad at the guidelines that they were given to make the bracket.
Absolutely. We'll kind of dive into national headlines here. Craig, last week, a story that kind of took on a life of its own ended up being Montana's push to get game day out to Missoula. Obviously, they ended up not going out to Missoula for game day this morning, but it generated a lot of national buzz, a lot of national headlines. And, as we look towards next season and potential game day locations next year for the FCS, how important was all the momentum Montana built last week?
Yeah, I think, you have to look at the positive here. I mean, it's almost like the Brawl of the Wild is owed one here after they picked Ohio State, which has had so many, visits from game day. I think the key here is you're trying to show a slice of Americana with the FCS. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have, the top game all the time. I think if you can get a great environment, like game day likes to go to FCS in October. Well, you got Citadel and VMI, the Military Classic of the South. That's a great game to go to. You have these HBCUs. You have these small schools that are really a slice of Americana. A Kennesaw State, a Campbell, new programs with great facilities and fan bases that support their teams. That's what they could be doing here. And yes, the Brawl of the Wild, it works against them, the timing every year, because there's so many FBS teams, in contention. But this was the year for them to do it. I mean, this scenario was perfect. I don't think they needed to go to Ohio State today. So I do think it sets it up for the future. Really, ESPN should feel like they owe, the FCS level, especially Montana State, a little bit of, in the future.
Absolutely. Sam, it's not always a fun topic to talk about, but the coaching carousel in the FCS kind of has already started spinning a little bit. When you look at the coaching landscape across the FCS this offseason coming up, kind of what do you expect from it? How do you expect it to shape up? And do you anticipate potentially a lot of movement?
Yeah, there's been, as of earlier this week, there's been 5 coaching changes so far with Western Illinois, Jacksonville State, Alabama State, Southern Utah, and Grambling as well. There will certainly be more to come, whether it be teams and programs moving on from their head coach or head coaches retiring. There's always obviously the opportunity for FCS head coaches to grab FBS jobs. And it seems like every offseason will probably get into the double digits, the number of head coaching changes in the FCS. And so to have 5 already before the regular season is over is kind of high, but we'll certainly see that number jump up, once we get into December and, ADs, start making their decisions.
We'll get to the monster slate of games we got coming up here in just 1 second. But Craig, before we do, we're getting down to the wire here for some big awards, specifically the Peyton Award and the Buchanan Award. Kind of, with just this last day left of the regular season, how are those 2 awards shaping up, and how are they looking from your standpoint going into this weekend?
It's been a great year individually. I think in the Peyton, Cole Kelly, who won it in the spring, and Eric Berry was so close in the voting. They jumped out and have really maintained great seasons. If Lee Corso was here in Montana today, he might say not so fast, because there's some strong contenders. Pierre Strong, in fact, of South Dakota State, is probably in the mix, a great running back. Trevor Penning, UNI's left tackle, could be a top 10 pick. How can you go wrong with that? I just think there's so many. The quarterbacks that James Madison, Cole Johnson, Eric Schmidt down at Sam Houston. I think the Peyton race, yeah, Kelly and Barry stand out, but there are some great contenders. And usually I think the Buchanan is even more wide open, but it is, such a great year for the Peyton. But the Buchanan for the defensive player, all those great players in the Big Sky defensively, Troy Anderson, the Montana guys, Ford and O'Connell. McNeese has a great defensive end who was 4th in the spring, Isaiah Chambers. Isaiah Land at Florida A&M, another defensive end. I think that one's very wide open. People go a lot of different directions when it comes to Buchanan voting every year. So I just think it's been a great year. And that's because all these veteran players returned after playing in the spring.
A lot of high caliber talent here in the FCS, especially this season. We're seeing a lot of great performances. All right, guys, let's get to today's slate of games. We got a great, group coming up here, kicking off right before we know it. Sam, we'll start with you. What contests you have circled today is your most intriguing, and which ones are you most excited to watch here?
Yeah, there's a long list. I'll just go with my top 3, and so Craig can, so I don't take all of Craig's. But yeah, I think Montana State, Montana is the biggest one. I'll be able to be there. I'm going to watch the game today in person, that should be a great environment. But if Montana State wins, I think they get a top 2 seed while Montana plays in the first round. If Montana wins, I think both teams could be seeded in the top 8 for the playoffs. UC Davis and Sacramento State, I think the winner there is definitely going to be a seed, and the loser is playing in the first round. And then lastly, I think Monmouth and Kennesaw State, that'll determine the Big South champion. It'll determine the Big South auto bid. But it'll also have an impact on the bubble too, because I think if Kennesaw wins the AQ, Monmouth might not have the resume to get in that large bid. But if Monmouth gets the AQ, I think Kennesaw has a pretty good resume to get the at-large bid. And so that's kind of a game where whoever wins, we could have one team out of the Big South or two teams out of the Big South making the playoffs, just depending on who the winner is.
Good contest there. Craig, what else? What other games have your eye today?
Yeah, so many good ones, Bryson. I mean, obviously the Brawl of the Wild takes center stage in the Big Sky, but that's Sacramento State, UC Davis rivalry is tremendous as well. I think South Dakota State, they're trying to, finish strong after a couple tough weeks. They're playing North Dakota is going to give them fits. That Mercer ETSU game in SoCon is for the championship. We talked about the rivalries. You can't go wrong with rivalries. I mean, Lafayette and Lehigh, the most played game in Division I. This will be 157th for Noble. I just love those kind of small schools that are just dying to beat each other every year. That one stands out as well. There's just so many great games today.
Awesome. Good stuff, guys. All right. Well, before we go, we want to give you both an opportunity here to kind of play what you've been working on. Sam, obviously, you'll be at the Brawl today, so we'll watch out for the coverage there. But, ahead of the bracket coming out tomorrow and everything, what can FCS fans be on the lookout for here?
Yeah, certainly diving into a lot of playoff stuff, playoff predictions, national title favorites, and stuff like that. And then we'll have our All-American teams, all FCS, sophomore and freshman All-American teams coming up sometime in December as well. And so that's a little ways away, but something for fans to look out for.
Godspeed going through all those eligibility for the freshman and sophomore teams there. Craig, over to you. Obviously, those big awards coming out here soon. What else you've been working on out there?
Why, do you have any third or fourth year freshmen?
I'm sure we can find some.
Well, we mentioned it earlier. I mean, the FCS awards between the Peyton Buchanan and the Rice, the Robinson for the coach. I mean, we're all ready here for the finalists in the next few days, next week. So we're going to be unveiling those lists. So that's going to be a lot of fun and great competition for these awards.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Appreciate your time here. Sam Herder from Hero Sports, Craig Haley from Stats Perform, and Bryson Lester for FCS All-In, signing off, and we'll see you next time.
What's up, everybody? Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, back with you once again for the final week of the season as we take a look at the Ivy League football schedule for week number 10. And there's a lot to get into in this final episode here because we have a lot to play for on the final week of the regular season on the gridiron. But as always, we love to start by taking a look at the Ivy League standings. And as you can see, there are two teams right now that are in play today this week for the Ivy League title, and that's Dartmouth and Princeton. Now, as you know, Dartmouth has a head-to-head matchup over Princeton, beating them a couple of weeks ago, but they can still win a share of the Ivy League title. Princeton can if they are able to knock off the Penn Quakers. But it's been a fantastic season so far in the Ivy League this year, and as we get to some of the games on the schedule, we'll start with one of those football teams in play for the Ivy League crown this weekend, and that's Dartmouth as they take on the Brown Bears. Now, Dartmouth has won 3 games straight. Heading into this ball game, they're playing on fire on both sides of the ball, and it's going to be up to Brown's defense once again to get key stops. If they can't get stops, it's going to be an issue. We've seen this team do things like this before. They've played well up front. They've been able to get pressure. If they can continue to do that against a very good point of attack team like Dartmouth, it goes a long way in helping the Brown Bears pull off the upset. So we'll see how it all plays out there on the field. Next up, we have the game, which is one of the best college football rivalries in the country, and that involves Harvard versus Yale. Now, Harvard is coming to this ball game on a 2-game winning streak, and we know that running game with Aaron Shamplin and Aiden Bourget is one to deal with out there on Saturdays, and it has given opponents problems all season long. With that duo rushing the football, it makes them very hard to defeat. Yale is coming in playing some really good offense. Last week, they ran out of gas in the second half offensively. They hope that's not the case in this ball game against Harvard. I expect this one to come down to the wire like all of these games do, because these are two outstanding offenses, and you have a last game of the season situation. Should be a fantastic matchup. Next up, Columbia takes on Cornell, and the Lions looked impressive defensively last weekend. I thought they did a great job versus Brown, slowing down that offense. We know Brown can put the ball in the paint multiple times in the course of a ball game, but they were outstanding on both sides of defense, stopping the run and eliminating the big plays in the passing game. Now for Cornell in this ball game, they want to close out the season on a high note. We've seen this team do it before. We saw it earlier in the year against Colgate. We also saw them do a great job in a game against Penn. So we know this team can get it done. They want to close out on a winning note. We'll see if they can get it done today against a team like Columbia. And lastly, we have the Princeton Tigers taking on the Penn Quakers, and the Tigers are looking for their share of the Ivy League crown, a split championship in the Ivy League if they're able to get the win against the Penn Quakers. I love how they were able to rebound since their loss versus Dartmouth. This is one of the best football teams in the FCS, and Bob Sweary's had himself a really good year with this Tigers football team. If you're Penn, it's the last game of the season. They've been close all throughout the year, so it wouldn't surprise me to see a ton of trickeration in this ball game from the Quakers. Open up the playbook, let it all hang out for this final game, and just see how it ends up being on the scoreboard. So I expect a fun game in this one and all throughout the Ivy League in this final week of the season, week number 10. So that's it for this edition of the Ivy League football preview. I am Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. I want to send a special shout out to all of you guys for watching the previews each and every week to check in on Ivy League football action. And for more Ivy League football content, keep it locked here on ESPN+.
It's the final week of the regular season in CAA football, and there are plenty of great storylines. James Madison and Villanova are both looking to capture a conference title, and there are bragging rights on the line in 4 traditional rivalry games. We start with the Battle of the Blue as Villanova visits Delaware. 6th-ranked Wildcats enter the contest 6-1 in CAA play, and a victory on Saturday would earn them their first conference title since 2012 and the league's automatic bid to the FCS playoffs. Head coach Mark Ferrante knows it won't be easy to get past the Blue Hens.
Records mean nothing in this one. We're going to come down there and, hopefully play a consistent 4 quarters. I know they're going to be trying to do the same. And it's just got a little extra to it. It's just, like I said, rivalry weekend, and, us in Delaware, we're only 45 minutes apart, and, it's a game that everyone looks forward to. And, we're just looking forward to going down there.
Delaware defeated Villanova 27-20 last spring to capture the CAA title for the first time since 2010 and snap an 8-game losing streak in the series. The Blue Hens need a victory on Saturday to clinch a winning season, and head coach Danny Rocco knows what's at stake.
Just like Mark had said, it's a rivalry game. It's a big game. It's an exciting moment for all of us and for our fans, and we recognize the significance of that. And, categorically, though, it's about your preparation.
After improving to 5-0 on the road last week, James Madison returns home to face Towson. The Dukes are looking to claim their 6th CAA championship in 7 seasons, and head coach Kurt Signetti said it would be a crowning achievement for a senior class playing their final regular season game at Bridgeforth Stadium.
Yeah, a lot of success in my time, and these guys had a year under Coach Houston also. So, but they want to go out. They've got a goal. They want to go all the way. We've got a lot of good football players in that class. So, these guys have done a lot of great things, had a great experience at JMU. I'm proud of every one of them.
Among the concerns for Towson head coach Rob Ambrose on Saturday is trying to slow down CAA's top 2 receivers, JMU's Antoine Wells Jr. and Chris Thornton.
That they're very, very good, along with the guy that throws the ball to them. And statistically, he's going to be one of the best in the league too. And schematically, they're smart. They find a way to put those guys in good positions, and they've been doing it week after week.
Rhode Island and Elon enter Saturday's game in a tie for 3rd place in the CAA, and both have plenty to play for. The Rams are 7-3 overall and could put themselves in position to earn an FCS playoff berth for the first time since 1985 with a victory. Head coach Jim Fleming talks about how significant that would be.
Hopefully we get that opportunity, but it would be a significantly huge step for our football program. It's the last time we were in the playoffs since 1985. So, you're talking long period of time, long drought, and we've been able to put up a number of things that are considered firsts in a long time since we've been here. But get to the playoffs is what we really want. That in the championship. That championship's off the table, but still have a chance to get into the playoffs if we play well and are able to be very good Elon team.
Elon can lock up a winning season with a victory on Saturday, but head coach Tony Trisciani knows Rhode Island will provide a formidable test.
You know, they're a hungry football team that has rallied back from a 3-game slide against Towson Nova, Maine, and now they're just looking forward and not back, you know, playing and fighting for an NCAA playoff bid.
Here's a look at the schedule around CAA football.
Hello everyone, I'm Mark Bryant in the Big South Network studio, and welcome to Championship Saturday in the Big South. For the 4th time in 5 seasons, Kennesaw State and Monmouth are meeting in the Big South Championship game. The Owls host the Hawks today at 1 p.m. on ESPN+, with the winner earning the league's automatic bid to the FCS playoffs. Both squads are undefeated in conference games at 6-0 and enter today on impressive win streaks. 8 consecutive victories for Kennesaw State and 16 straight Big South wins for Monmouth. Now the Monmouth Hawks seek a 3rd straight Big South title, while Kennesaw State's last conference championship was in 2018. We spoke with both head coaches earlier this week about playing for the championship and what it will take to hoist the trophy.
Well, as I told our team today, you know, everybody in the country, you know, they play their season in hopes that the last game is a meaningful game. And, you know, I don't think there could be any better scenario than to play the last game of your regular season for a conference championship. And as I said, very few teams have that opportunity, and we're just fortunate to have the opportunity this week and really looking forward to it.
I mean, it's obviously a goal of our program, to win the Big South. That's something that we talk a lot about. And it's just a long year, and, taking it one day at a time, 1 week at a time. And then I have the opportunity, going into the last game to have a chance to achieve that goal. We're excited about the game, excited about the opportunity.
Well, I think we're going to have to play a balanced game in terms of having success both offensively and defensively. We're going to have to do a good job against the quarterback and the running backs because they are the guys that make them go. However, that receiving core, they've got great size, they've got good length, they've got guys that will not just block in the run game, but will go out and get the ball. And we're going to have to do a good job against them. So, we're going to have to do a good job on all 3 levels on the defensive side.
Defensively, we got to stop the run and prevent the big play. I think those are the 2 key components. Obviously, create some turnovers. You always talk about that. And I think we got to get off to a really good start on offense and create some momentum. And then we got to win in special teams. I think special teams sometimes is one of those areas, but there's going to be some yardage Saturday and maybe some momentum plays that, are going to sway the game a little bit.
That's a wrap on the 2021 regular season. Enjoy the final weekend of games and follow Big South football on ESPN Plus and on social media at Big South Sports.
Holy Cross won its 9th Patriot League championship in program history on Saturday with a dominating win in the Bronx over Fordham. The Crusaders will finish out the regular season in Week 12 with a road game at Bucknell, and then they'll be off to represent the Patriot League for the 3rd straight season in the FCS playoffs. Hi, I'm Maria Trival-Peace for FCS All-In. Holy Cross became the first team since 2006 to win 3 straight Patriot League titles, and now they're just 3 championships away from matching Lehigh's league record. The 3rd championship was in question early on as Fordham scored consecutive touchdowns to take a 21-17 lead before a weather delay halted play. Out of the break, Fordham extended its lead to 24-17, but it was all Holy Cross from there. Jordan Fuller scored with 15 seconds left in the half to tie it at 24, and Matthew Sluka led the Crusaders to 35 unanswered points in the 52-24 win. He finished with 272 yards passing, 104 yards rushing, and 4 total touchdowns. Colgate remained in the running for a share of the Patriot League title with the win at Lafayette on Saturday. Garrett Oakey's catch late in the 4th landed number 4 in SportsCenter's top 10 plays, and it set up Mike Brescia's 2-yard game-winning touchdown. Quarterback Dante Perry threw for 259 yards and a pair of touchdowns to help lead the Mountain Hawks to their 2nd straight win. His 11-yard pass to Johnny Foley with 6:08 left locked up the 23-9 win over Georgetown. The regular season closes with 4 games on Saturday, including the 157th meeting of Lehigh Lafayette. The Leopards have won back-to-back games against the Mountain Hawks, including a 20-13 win in the spring. That game will kick off at 12:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus with both the home and away broadcasts. Georgetown will travel to Morgan State, while Colgate hosts Fordham for noon kicks. Bucknell and Holy Cross round out the schedule at 1 p.m. We have several features published from around the Patriot League on our student athletes in football. You can catch them on YouTube, and be sure to follow us on social at Patriot League TV.
After an exciting 11 weeks of Southland Conference football, we've finally reached the end of the regular season. Week after week, we've seen incredible individual as well as team performances from all 6 of our Southland Strong teams. As we gear up for the final weekend of play, let's take a look back at last week's Football Weekly Awards presented by Geico. After rushing for a season-high 185 yards, Kevin Brown from UIW is named the Offensive Player of the Week. The graduate running back contributed 2 scores in the Cardinals' 27-23 road win at Nichols, scoring from 55 yards and 85 yards out. Brown, who led the FCS last season in yards per carry, averaged 16.8 in the victory and upped his pace to 8.1 yards per carry in conference play. He currently leads UIW in rushing with 808 total yards and 10 touchdowns, marks that rank second amongst all Southland Conference players. This week's Special Teams Player of the Week is Southeastern's Brennan Dingle. The senior wide receiver played a vital role in providing the Lions excellent field position in their 56-28 win over Northwestern State, averaging 37.6 yards on 3 kickoff returns. His longest went for 80 yards and set Southeastern up perfectly for a touchdown the following play. He also hauled in a pair of passes for 56 yards to finish with a game-high 169 all-purpose yards. And McNeese's Isaiah Chambers takes home the Defensive Player of the Week honor for the second time this season. The graduate defensive end tallied 3 tackles for loss, a pair of sacks, a pass breakup, and forced 2 fumbles in the Cowboys' 44-3 win over HBU. Collectively, the Cowboys defense put on a dominant performance by holding the Huskies to just 3 points, 7 net rushing yards, and 182 yards of total offense. A big congratulations to Kevin Brown, Brennan Dingle, and Isaiah Chambers, our Player of the Week award winners. Now looking towards the last weekend of Southland Conference play, with Cole Kelly and his Southeastern Lions having played host to Nichols on Thursday night, Saturday's games get underway at noon on ESPN3 as McNeese and Northwestern State square off for the second time this season. McNeese won the first matchup at Turpin Stadium, but both teams come into this game hoping to end their respective seasons on a high note. And the day wraps up at 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus, with UIW and HBU playing for the second time in a month's span. The Cardinals beat the Huskies in the first meeting on Halloween weekend, but this matchup carries much more weight. With a win, the Cardinals will either outright win or win a share of the Southland Conference football title, their second in the Eric Morris era. Again, here's a look at our last Southland slate of the season. Best of luck to all our student athletes taking the field this weekend.
Time to focus in on what's happening around the Southern Conference during this 12th week of the football season.
In a season marked by the SoCon celebration of 100 years of athletic competition, would you expect anything less than a football championship that comes down to the final week of the 2021 campaign? ETSU and Mercer find themselves solidly atop the Southern Conference standings, with Chattanooga the lone 2-loss squad, and everyone else jockeying for final positioning heading into this late November Saturday. Sanford made a little history in their trip to the Swamp this past weekend, scoring the most points ever for an FCS team against a Power 5 program when they visited the SEC's Gators. 52 were posted as a result of 530 yards of total offense on a day, but 70 points for the Gators, enough to overcome Samford's surge, and the crew out of the SEC would win the battle 70-52. ETSU also put up monster offensive numbers on the road at Western Carolina Saturday, boasting just the second rushing tandem in Southern Conference history to eclipse 200 yards in the same game. Jacob Sailors posted 266 yards with a trio of touchdowns, and Quay Holmes pitched in with 212 of his own and 3 scores in the contest as well. The effort kept the Bucs in the championship hunt by virtue of a 56-35 win over the Catamounts. The Furman Paladins pushed out front early to the tune of a 17-0 advantage on a day when Jace Wilson threw for 269 yards and a pair of scores, both those totals season best for the young QB. His counterpart, VMI's Seth Morgan, threw for more than 400 yards for the second time this season. Yet the Paladins overcame his big day with a 37-31 victory. The Wofford Terriers came within a single point and overtime of picking up their first league win of the year, pushing the Citadel to the brink in an all-Palmetto State showdown. Yet when the dust settled, 121 yards and a pair of scores from Jalen Adams proved enough, alongside a couple of touchdowns on the ground, to propel the Citadel to a 45-44 win. And it was a defensive slugfest in Macon, Georgia that also kept Mercer in the championship hunt. The Bears will control their own destiny on the road in Johnson City thanks to a 10-6 victory over the Chattanooga Mocs, a day when special teams loomed large for Mercer. With drama building late, Mercer recovered the final kickoff in remarkable fashion to seal the 10-6 win and set up the showdown with the Bucs. The Southern Conference Championship will be decided in Johnson City, Tennessee, a 1 p.m. kickoff between the Mercer Bears and the ETSU Bucs to determine who ends up 7-1 atop the league as the champions of the fall 2021 campaign. With the FCS playoffs right around the corner, that automatic bid out of the league.
Those are your SoCon football headlines for Week 12.
Jared Lewis passed for 3 touchdowns, and Savion Wilkerson rushed for another on Saturday, as Delaware State overcame a 26-0 halftime deficit to defeat Norfolk State 28-26 at Alumni Stadium and eliminate the Spartans from MEAC championship contention. North Carolina Central, meanwhile, stayed alive in the title hunt with a 45-27 win over Howard, a game in which the Eagles rushed for 293 yards, and Latrell Collier and Davius Richard each rushed for 2 touchdowns. Elsewhere, MEAC leader South Carolina State fell 27-17 in non-conference action to North Carolina A&T State, despite 160 rushing yards and a score from Kendrell Flowers. And Morgan State fell 41-14 to Albany. This Saturday, MEAC Countdown to Kickoff, presented by Coca-Cola, will be live from Norfolk State University for its final show of the season in advance of the Spartans' regular season finale against South Carolina State, as the Bulldogs look to wrap up the MEAC Championship outright on their way to Atlanta. Join hosts Charlie Neal and Nicole Hutchison at 12 p.m. live on ESPN Plus as they interview both head coaches, special guests, and break down the entire weekend of MEAC football action. 4 games are on tap this weekend, starting with Morgan State playing host to Georgetown at 12 p.m., live on the MEAC Digital Network on ESPN+. Also on the MEAC Digital Network on ESPN+, will be Howard playing host to Virginia University of Lynchburg at 1 p.m., as well as North Carolina Central playing host to Delaware State at 2 p.m. South Carolina State at Norfolk State will also kick off at 2 p.m., live on ESPN3, then rebroadcast on ESPNU on Sunday at 7:30 a.m. An Eagles win and a Bulldogs loss will make North Carolina Central and South Carolina State MEAC co-champions. though the Bulldogs hold the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Eagles for the MEAC's bid to the Cricket Celebration Bowl. A Bulldogs win over the Spartans would give South Carolina State the MEAC title outright. For more information on MEAC football and the conference's 15 other sponsored sports, please visit MEACsports.com. You can also follow the MEAC on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at MEAC Sports, and subscribe to the MEAC Digital Network on YouTube.
Ralph Ventry here with your Northeast Conference update on FCS All-In. It's all eyes on Sacred Heart as we head into Week 12, having won 5 straight conference games after dropping their NEC opener in September. The Sacred Heart Pioneers control their own destiny in the race for the NEC's automatic bid to the FCS playoffs. Sacred Heart visits LIU in the featured NEC Game of the Week on ESPN3, and the scenario is simple: win and in. The Pioneers can secure an FCS postseason berth by toppling their Week 12 opponent. Now, what's made Sacred Heart so successful of late? The answer, 2 syllables: defense. Sacred Heart has not allowed more than 17 points during its 5-game win streak, and the Sacred Heart defense ranks first amongst FCS team leaders in pass yards allowed, limiting the opposition to 261 yards per game. The Pioneers rank 7th on the national leaderboard in total defense, and the Pioneers' 14 points per game allowed are 6th fewest in the Football Championship Subdivision. Now, before we part here on FCS All-In, I'll give you a quick Cover 3 segment, shouting out 3 impressive individual performers. First, it's Bryant quarterback Zevi Eckhouse. The true freshman has been starting since Week 2. He has thrown at least 2 touchdown passes in 7 straight games. Last time out, Eckhouse threw for a conference-high 356 yards in a 52-7 win over LIU. 17 touchdown passes, only 3 interceptions. Not bad for a freshman. Now, Jakari Carter's second season in a Merrimack uniform has been fruitful, to say the least. The 5'9" receiver leads the NEC in receptions, receiving yards, and TD receptions. His 81 catches are tied for 5th most in NEC single season history. Carter is only 11 receptions shy of the NEC record set by SFU Hall of Famer Michael Caputo back in 2005. And over on the defensive side of the ball, let's shout out Wagner's Titus Leo. The New York City product played some receiver early on in his career. He won the NEC Defensive Player of the Year award last spring as a linebacker. And now Leo has been sensational at defensive end. And his 18.5 tackles for loss rank 5th overall amongst D1 FCS leaders. So that's all for now from the Northeast Conference. Follow at NEC Football on Twitter for more.
Next up is a feature on 4 players on this year's Tennessee Tech football roster who are legacy athletes, as each of their fathers played for the Golden Eagles.
In Tennessee Tech's victory over Virginia Lynchburg on October 23rd, second-year defensive lineman Devin Squires picked up this fumble and crossed the goal line to score his first collegiate touchdown.
Eludes Cale Dava. That ball's on the ground. It's picked up by Warwick. He then loses it. Squires picks it up, and it's a touchdown. Oh, wow.
Devin is one of 4 players on this year's Golden Eagles roster who is a Tech legacy.
You just brought him up. He's got a touchdown.
And the awesome thing about Devin, he's a legacy player for that. And what I mean, his dad, Thomas Squires, was an All-American here at Tennessee Tech and was just recently inducted into our Tennessee Tech, Sports Hall of Fame. He was a teammate of mine that I played with all while he was here. Myself and Coach Hatfield, who's our linebacker coach, we played with Thomas. And Thomas was an All-American and he's in the Hall of Fame, but he never scored a touchdown. And we kind of rubbed that in his face a little bit. But I can assure you, Thomas would have traded for his son to score a touchdown. He would have traded any that he would have scored, to see that happen. So, but it's awesome to have. Right now we have Drew Martin, who was our quarterback who got injured and lost for the year. His dad, Eric, was a teammate of mine and played here at Tennessee Tech. Clark Lockerbie, whose dad, Ted Lockerbie, played here, who was a defensive coordinator here as an assistant coach for Tennessee Tech, is on our team. We have Maddox Ritchie, one of our young quarterbacks. His dad, Clark Ritchie, played with me here at Tennessee Tech, was an offensive lineman. There's some really neat stories like that where we've got some former players who have, their sons are playing on the football team right now. And it's been really neat for me to have those guys, and trust their son to be on the team and to coach them and to have those guys back involved in our program and to see their kids, get to have the opportunity to get on the field and, have success, has really been a neat thing.
Alexander, who played at Tennessee Tech from 1985 through 87, served 2 stints as an assistant coach with the program before being named the head coach prior to the 2018 season.
There's a lot of positives to being an alum and coaching at your alma mater. Now, there's also some tough things that go with it as well. It's not all, what it's made of, but that has been one of the neat things is seeing guys that I played with in a group of guys. And I've also coached here as an assistant. So having just former guys that I've coached, have kids that are now starting to, come up and through. But, being able to reconnect with those guys has been awesome, especially whenever their kids can come here and then on top of that, come here, but have a good experience and have success and have them back for the tailgates and for the games and all that type of thing has really been special.
Moving forward, Tennessee Tech not only continues to build on its legacy with its players, but the program as well.
Let's look back at last week's action in the PFL as well as a preview to Week 12.
The year is winding down as just 1 week remains in the regular season for the Pioneer Football League. Out in Ohio, Jake Chisholm ran for 3 touchdowns and caught 2 more as Dayton denied Davidson an opportunity to clinch the PFL title with a 38-29 victory. Dayton went up 7-0 less than 30 seconds into the game after Chisholm caught a 22-yard pass from Jack Cook, and they did not give up the lead throughout. After the Flyers pushed the lead to 15 points, Davidson ran and a pair of fourth-quarter touchdowns to pull within 2. Adding to his impressive day, Chisholm gave the Flyers some insurance in the final minutes with a 32-yard rushing touchdown, making it a 9-point lead. After this performance, Chisholm was named the PFL's Offensive Player of the Week. Valparaiso picked up a dominant win over Butler on the road, defeating the Bulldogs 47-3. Ben Nims threw 3 touchdowns and Robert Washington ran for 2 more as the Beacons won the Hoosier helmet. Butler scored the game's first points on a field goal, but it was all Valpo after that. Marist scored 37 unanswered points between the second and third quarters to down Presbyterian 57-32. Presbyterian led 14-13 at the end of the first, but Marist responded at the end of the second quarter, scoring 20 points in the final 6 minutes before the half. Defensively, Marist posted PFL season best 5 interceptions, led by the league's co-defensive player of the week, Arthur Pinckney, with 2. Morehead State used a big finish to take down Stetson 36-35 on Saturday. Stetson built a 35-24 lead with 7 minutes remaining in the game, as Jalen Leary scored from 47 yards out midway through the fourth quarter. The Eagles' defense forced a punt, giving Morehead State the ball with 2:44 left. It took Pappas just over 2 minutes to march 93 yards for the game-winning score. Ian Holder recorded a 66-yard kick return midway through the fourth quarter and a drive that led to a touchdown. He amassed a PFL season-best 144 kickoff return yards in the win and was named the Special Teams Player of the Week. In the final game of the week, St. Thomas intercepted 5 passes, blocked a punt, and blocked a field goal, and ultimately held on for a 21-14 win over Drake. St. Thomas made the most of these big moments, scoring its first touchdown following an interception, while the blocked field goal led to a touchdown. Nick Rice dashed into the end zone from 28 yards out in the third quarter for what proved to be the game-winning score. Isaiah Hall led the defense with a pair of interceptions, while recording 4 solo tackles, a pass breakup, and a blocked field goal in the contest. He was named the Co-Defensive Player of the Week. With just 1 week remaining in the regular season, Davidson and San Diego are tied atop the standings with a 6-1 record, while 3 teams are just 1 game behind at 5-2. Here's a look at the schedule for today.
Next up is an inside look as to what's going on in the SWAC.
The Southwestern Athletic Conference has named Alabama A&M's Akil Glass, Jackson State's Keontae Hampton, Mississippi Valley State's Orlando Fernandez, and Texas Southern's Andrew Body as SWAC football Players of the Week. Glass continued to make history as he threw for 462 yards to go along with 5 touchdowns. Hampton contributed 11 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 pass breakup during Jackson State's come-from-behind victory over Southern. Fernandez was impressive in a variety of roles as he connected on a 37-yard field goal attempt, converted 5 point-after-touchdown attempts, and averaged 44.3 yards per punt. Body threw for 299 yards, 4 touchdowns on 13 of 25 passing, and also rushed for 54 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. For more information on the SWAC, visit us at www.swac.org.
In 1920, an athletic league was formed and slowly became one of the leading sports associations in the world of collegiate athletics, the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Today, the SWAC is looking towards the next century, growing, supporting, and transforming our intercollegiate sports activities for student athletes and promoting academic excellence. Each SWAC member institution represents a high level of integrity and sportsmanship. We are the SWAC, building champions for life.
As always, we appreciate you going all in with us throughout the regular season. While our weekly Saturday episodes will not continue throughout the playoffs, you can still expect exclusive FCS All-In content here. So be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to make sure you don't miss anything. As you've done with us all season, be sure to use the hashtag FCS All-In to keep the conversation going on social media throughout the playoffs. Enjoy this last Saturday of regular season FCS football and have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. For FCS All-In, I'm Mary Lou Skook.